Some of the saddest things that can happen to a human being. We all have seen people that are isolated, are away from people, and just don't seem to be doing well. You see, God wired us for community. He's the one that says it's not good for a man to be alone. And he wired us to be part of a family, to be part of a workplace, part of a neighbourhood, and to do well in that environment. Of course, he also wired us for communion, or for a relationship with himself, and that's vital. But I want to deal this morning with this issue, and that's the issue that people can become disconnected from the church community and disconnected from Christians because they have been hurt in a previous experience around church. And it's a very real issue, and it keeps a lot of people out of church. I asked my sister Joanne last night, what's the number one reason that people have for not being in church? And in her view, it's because people have had bad experiences. Now that rang true to me, and so I thought that's what I'll talk about in this week's Midweek Refuel. So perhaps you're not in church today because of an experience that hurt you before, and you're just gun shy, you're just wary of involvement again. Something in you wants to be involved, but you're being held back because of that previous hassle. And of course that's normal, and that's understandable. Who wants to go through pain again if pain can be avoided? I mean, why would you want to put yourself in that situation again? And it makes some sense until it gets to the place where you are isolated and lonely. It makes some sense until you've got God's voice beginning to say, you know what, you really need to be back in community. Because while community can hurt you, as you become vulnerable, as you're working alongside, it can be disappointing. Community is also very helpful. And I think we do a sort of an equation in our heads. It goes something like this. If my bad experiences in a community are heavier than I can handle, and they're certainly heavier than the benefits that I'm getting, then I will feel safer in staying away. But I think many times then we begin to reinforce the hurts and the pains, and especially if we've allowed ourselves to become bitter or angry, or we're rehearsing those things over and over again, and we know that that's not healthy for us. A bitter experience can make us into bitter people, but bitterness does not make us better. A little bit of my story. We had a bad experience in a church community at one stage, and God dealt with me and said, look, through this, just understand that you are only going to hurt yourself if you become bitter. And so if you're going to become angry, if you're going to allow that to taint your view of church and his kingdom, then that's going to set you way off track from where I want you. So Donna and I decided, okay, we are not going to become bitter. We will learn from the past, we'll learn from what's gone on before, but it's not going to stop us from entering into community again. Just behind me here you can see a pool, and there's a large pool and there's a little spa kind of there. Some kids were down here just a little while ago, just swimming around and becoming familiar with that. And one of the kids is pretty young, and so he was a couple of days ago just getting into the little wading pool, which just happens to be the spa. But I noticed today he was in the big pool. He'd gained confidence in the small and then jumped into the large pool. I think this is a valuable life lesson for us. Perhaps you have been isolated from community, but you sense that you'd like to be back in the water. You'd like to be back among all of the people. Perhaps you can find a little place, a little wading pool, a little group. In our church we have connect groups, but perhaps there's a new friendship circle of friends that you could join. Perhaps even God has been reaching out to you, inviting you to places. And many times you find yourself saying, no, maybe later, maybe next time, when you really would like to say yes. Well, perhaps that's an invitation to a wading pool before jumping into the big pool. I mean, here's some of the positives of Christian community. You get like-minded people around you. You get people who can support you, people that can befriend you and encourage you. What about this? You get to go and support other people. I mean, most of us want to make a difference at some point in our lives. And so you get to inject into that as well. You get to become perhaps part of a team, perhaps part of a group that's doing something useful, and together everybody achieves more, as the old acronym goes. You begin to have confidence that you are in the right place with the right kind of people, and heaven is going to be nothing if it's not the right place with all of the right kind of people. So church, if you like, is a little bit of a microcosm of heaven. However, we deal here with our fallen nature. We deal here with people causing problems, and perhaps, just perhaps, God has some wisdom in getting us into a pre-heaven community so we can work out some of the stuff that we need to. Here's something that you don't know about me. Before I was a Christian, I very much felt safer in my own company rather than among other people. And, God dealt with me and really helped me. It's interesting. He places, the Bible says, the solitary in families. And so he picked me up from where I was, in my lonely place, in my isolated place, in my safe place, and then put me in a church community where I began to learn about him, learn about other people, and developed a vision and a purpose for my life. Okay, so here's my challenge for you, and that is to step back in. You might not jump back in. It might not be a great big bommy into the middle of a church circle again, but perhaps you can take some steps and just begin to get your feet wet. Just begin to get your comfort back again. I believe God could set you up there for a wonderful 2022. The truth is, you are formed. We're formed for community, and you know that because many times you're sitting by yourself and you're just realizing, you know what? I wish I could be somewhere else. I wish I could be involved in that. And you get little pulls, little hints that you're designed for something else. Well, God is calling you to that. And it may not be a perfect experience. It may not be everything that you've desired. But I have learned this, that jumping into what God has for me is a good place. And it's an experience. It will be a step of faith for some of you, that's for sure, right? But just allow God to help you, and just take those early steps and wade right into what he has for you. All right? So Merry Christmas from me. Thank you for all of those who've joined us on Midweek Refuel. Really just grateful for those who watch on Facebook and have been following us this last 18 months. Next year we are doing some great things around our church. Come check us out, C3 Limitless Gold Coast. We'll see you next year.